Today we're going to talk about the roots to procrastination, and why sometimes it can feel like your best choice, even though you're making that decision, and it is a decision, you're making it sometimes unconsciously. All right. So I thought we'd start off. Oh, first off, I want to just announce for those people who asked me to, the Hoarding Level 1 support group starts the week of May the 24th. It's a Tuesday. It's going to run on alternate Tuesdays. The timing I have right now for it is 2:30 till 4, and it runs for 8 weeks. All right, so there will be, it actually will last 16 weeks because it will be on the alternate Tuesdays when I'm not in Mississauga. I would have done it weekly, but on the alternate weeks, Monday and Tuesday, I'm in Mississauga, my practice there. The other that I mentioned for other people, Hoarding Level 3, if you've had Hoarding Level 2 support group, if you've been part of that, then you qualify for 3. And I did have a question from one person who had attended a program in Hamilton at the hospital there for 12 weeks. And I would like to talk with you just to see how much of that information you integrated. You might well qualify for the Hoarding Level 3 support group. That's going to start on Fridays, starting the 27th of May. And I thought I would start it in the morning. That way we start the day positively, and then you've got the rest of the day on a Friday to do whatever you want or need to do. And the time that I have tentatively set for that is 10 till 11:30. Leave it open till quarter to 12, 12 o'clock, because there will be days when we're really on a roll and we need a little extra time to bring things in for a landing. Again, that will be 10 weeks, and it will be on alternate Fridays. All right? Yay! All right, great. So let's start about procrastination and the ROOTS, and then the ROUTS that you end up taking behaviorally. All right? So if you hear yourself in any of the following statements, then start taking notes. All right? Okay. Anybody here ever tell themselves, you know, in the past I haven't, but I'm going to start early this time? All right. And then they find that time has passed, and they start to have this really uneasy feeling in the pit of their stomach. All right. And part of the unspoken message of that tension that they're feeling is apprehension that maybe it's not going to work that way this time. Maybe this time isn't feeling a lot different from the other times that you regret, or that you pulled an all-nighter to make something work, finish, according to a deadline. Has anybody said to themselves, okay, so I said I'd start earlier this time. And that hasn't really come to pass. I've got to start pretty soon. All right? And part of what you feel is that tension, and you actually have an internal sense of being pushed to make more of an effort. But the deadline for that project still hasn't arrived. And you know what? There's that dissonance, that contradiction, and that maybe you will start, but now it's starting to feel like some kind of undefined quantity that's going to make it start, and you start to hope, just hope, that there still is a hope that I'll start in time. Hasn't started yet, though. When a little more time passes and that deadline is coming a little closer, has anybody said, maybe this time isn't going to be like I want. Maybe it's going to be more like what I normally do. What if I don't start? Okay. And then there's that creeping sense of foreboding. Almost to the point where you can't kind of breathe because you're becoming paralyzed. All right? By what? The thoughts that are starting to spin out of control in your head. How am I going to get a handle on this? I need to start. I need to either start or I need to give up. Then the deadline arrives. You know this is a bigger project than the amount of time that you have left. All right. Then you start beating yourself up. Then you start criticizing yourself. Then you start undermining yourself with talk like, I really should have started sooner. And the behaviors to avoid are now starting to escalate. All right. And anybody ever found that they haven't started the project, but they're doing every other possible thing that they can see that's not connected? Hands up? Okay. There's only one way out of this. All right. And you're already feeling badly. You're feeling like, oh no, dread. Oh no, it's not going to be any different. So you have to start to soothe yourself to quell that anxiety. How do you do that? When we do this to ourselves, we have to start rationalizing. That's what I call stick handling logic. I want you to picture in your mind there's a hockey game going on. All right, and darn it, that puck is going in one net or the other, and you're going to stick handle whatever happens. You're going to stick handle it to make the best sense that costs you the least. All right, and you start telling yourself things like, well, I'm making progress on some things. All right, I mean, there's evidence that I am actually making, but you're not kidding yourself. There's that, come on, feeling in the pit of your stomach, all right? Because it's not where you need the effort to be made. It's every other possible thing that you can think of, all right? Well, once the rationalization isn't working that well, because there is no evidence that you're actually starting with what needs to be done, what you started to do, the only other thing to do is to distract yourself. So Netflix begins to look good. Online shopping begins to look good. TV, solitaire on your phone, gaming on your computer, just having a look at what's online. You know those pop-up ads? We're just going to look, right? You distract yourself. And that gives you kind of a payoff of a little bit of pleasure. And then you convince yourself, you know what? I deserve some happiness. And immediately the trigger, either visual or actually closing the deal, gives you a tremendous sense of reward. And that was sadly lacking in the plan to get that project, that task done. And any good feeling is welcome at this point, right? But any relief when you look at the project that needs to be done disappears, all right? And you can only fool yourself some. You can't entirely fool yourself successfully long term. And sooner or later, maybe pretty quickly, the apprehension, and the dissatisfaction, the unhappiness with yourself. That looming consequence is sitting there waiting to be paid. Then, quite often, because none of us are an island, we become afraid of being discovered. All right, that starts to set in. And that fear that looking for somebody else, something else to account for our inaction or our distracted behavior, shopping for instance, all right, we start to validate that. But that's true, that's legitimate. And we do it in order to avoid the shame. The shame that sooner or later we are going to be discovered, either by our credit card company or someone else, our partner, the person that we are financially in a responsible relationship with. All right. Checks start to bounce, other things start to bounce. All right. And all of that, all right, is the cleanup of that is busy work. Busy work to kind of smooth over the illusion that all's okay. It's not great. But at the same time, there's that niggling little self-truth that when we do that to ourselves, we feel like a fraud. Anybody here? Any? Yeah, mute. All right, Braden, you're going to have to delete that one, okay? There's that niggling little feeling because we can't really lie to ourselves. We can distract, we can smooth things over, but sooner or later, if it's not our truth, if it's not the truth, there's a price to pay. There's always a price to pay. Only this time we've paid it double. We've got ourselves in trouble over our ears, all right, because we're nowhere near starting, nowhere near far enough along to meet the deadline. But we're telling ourselves things. We're giving ourselves a logic, and we begin to feel ashamed of ourselves, all right? Doubt ourselves, undermine ourselves. We feel like a fraud. We're saying and doing one thing, but really the truth is very different. Okay, and sometimes, if we've done this a number of times, we persist in the denial that there's still time. I've pulled all-nighters. I've done this before. I work my best. I work my best as an all-nighter. Anybody there tell yourself that? Anybody else ever wondered if you didn't pull an all-nighter? If you paced yourself out? You just tried it as an experiment. All right? How much better you might be able to accomplish something? Because when you're out of desperation telling yourself there's still time and you're still persisting in the denial, what you're hoping for is a magical reprieve. That all the ducks are going to line up in perfect order and there's not going to be any quacking or any resistance. You're not going to get sick. Something else isn't going to land in. It's still technically possible. All right. And when that doesn't happen well enough, or you pull it out of the fire and you're absolutely spent, all right, you have that sense of just having escaped the hangman's noose in this, all right, and you start telling yourself, other people don't do this. Okay, does everybody do this? Everybody can't possibly do this. And you're desperate, you're exhausted. And once you come down a little from that, there's going to be a moment. There's going to be a come to truth moment with yourself where you ask yourself, but usually you're blaming yourself because you're paying the price for not starting. There's something wrong with me. All right. You have a frightening little fear that you may do 100 other things to distract and get away from. But that fear is that there's something basically flawed and inadequate about yourself, that you keep having to do this. All right? The problem really is me. All right? Because others don't have to do this. Not everybody has to do this. All right? And I don't actually want to be somebody who all the time has to do this. And that just sits there like a thud, like a weight in your gut. All right? At that point, all right, the morning of the day you're going to have to pull the all day and all nighter, to pull this out of the fire at all, you get a choice. Not to do it or to do it. All right? What did Shakespeare say? To do or not to do? That is the question. All right. So if you choose not to do it, and sometimes that looks like your best choice, the tension becomes unbearable. It builds and builds and builds. All right? Because you're bumping your head on the fact it can't be done in the time that's left. And the stress at considering failure and what that means about you is immense. All right? You feel immobilized. All right? Immobilized to the point that your best effort isn't enough. And sometimes you have to face the truth. You did leave it too late again. Right? What does that do to you? Is it worth the price? Is it worth the price to do that to yourself? Because you are doing that to yourself. There is another way. The other choice is to do it. All right? You say to yourself, okay, it's going to be an all day and an all nighter because I absolutely can't wait any longer. The pressure is so intense, and the cost of not doing even a half-baked effort is too big. It's too big for me. I don't want to pay that price to somebody else. But the inertia, getting yourself started from a dead stop, is so stressful and so demanding that it almost feels it's easier not to. But for whatever reason this time, even though it is very, very last moment, you resign yourself to the fact that the price you're going to pay if you don't do anything, even a half-baked effort, is too big, and you decide you're going to begin. All right? Has anybody here ever said to themselves, once they finished the job, maybe not as well done as they wanted or needed it to be, or somebody else expected it, what's the big deal? I don't understand. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. I don't know why I do this. All right? If I just got myself started, it wasn't that bad. And so you determine that next time, isn't that where we started this time? Okay. How many people here want that to be different? Put a thumbs up in your screen, by hand or by symbol. How many people actually want? There, I got a lightning rod full of thumbs up. Okay, so you've raced to the deadline. You're doing whatever is needed to make it happen. You're trying to finish on time, but you still are depriving yourself of being able to do the best that you're capable of doing. Now what you're capable of doing is actually determined by the time you've left, not your capacity. All right? Just be careful. The best indicator of future behavior is past behavior if nothing changes. At a very minimum, do not set yourself up for failure. Do not say to yourself, I promise that I will never procrastinate again. Don't say that. That's how we start to improve this. We don't make false promises. What I want you to say to yourself instead is, whatever's going wrong when I have a project with a deadline, before the next project arrives, before the next deadline half kills me, all right, I'm going to find out what the heck is going on inside my mind that I continue to do this, because I am worth more than this. And I've proved to myself, I need to find a way to remember why. At the end, I'm always saying to myself, it wasn't that bad. Once I got started, I don't know what the deal was. Let's make a commitment now. How many people here today, thumbs up in person or thumbs up symbolically with the little symbol? We're not going to lie to ourselves again. We are actually going to commit to find out and starting to work on. This didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to solve itself overnight. This is not going to be a lightning rod moment where the light dawns and we all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. All right? That's not what this is. This is, could it be that? Could it be that? I want to look deeper. Yeah, journal. Good idea, Leslie. You can journal by recording into a phone or into a machine, or you can journal writing, whichever is your ilk. All right? It's a really good way to track the history. All right? Okay. Now, roots. ROOTS. All right. If you're procrastinating, at some level, there is a belief, all right, that you cannot possibly keep up with the pressure of performing perfectly. Now, you don't generally use the word perfectly. You generally use a word like good enough, but okay, it isn't good enough. The truth is, the standard you're setting, if you're procrastinating, isn't good enough. It's got some tripping factor. It's got a tripwire in there somewhere where you end up on your knees again. We got to find out what that tripwire is. All right? Okay. Because here's another piece to the fundamental root of procrastination. It's necessary in order to meet that deadline, right? And the deadline isn't generally one you've set. It's generally an externally, something to do with the project, all right? The work you need to do, are you ready for this one? Has to be done as it should be done. As soon as you hear the word should, I want you to picture yourself with a shovel, digging yourself into a hole. And every time you say the word should, you dig a little deeper. You dig a little deeper. Should is a shovel that digs you into a hole of your own making. All right? Good enough, finished, beats perfect, promised. 100%. Good enough, finished, beats should, the way it should be done, ideal, optimally, perfect. That's just happening here in your imagination, the way you picture it. All right? If your hands ain't dirty finishing it, it doesn't count. You got to get your hands into it. Okay. Where did the ROUTE of procrastination start? Well, it can be a setup. It can be a setup that might have started as early as your academic experience, going to school, all right, was part of your identity, part of your group belonging? Was it attached to the fact that you were an A student, a B student, a C student, a D student, or an F student? Okay? You notice how those marks that we get already start to cut us out from the herd. If we weren't the best academic student, academics is not the best indicator of success or competence. If you were consistently an A student, all that says about you is you're good academically. It doesn't mean that when the rubber hits the road, you're going to be any better than anybody else. All right? It's a measure of the fact that you can absorb and digest information that is presented academically. That's all it means. Some of you who were C and D students, all right, who had to repeat grades, maybe some of you learned life lessons that will stand you in good stead. All right? So, if you were at the tail end of that A, B, C, D, E, I don't think there was any D, F continuum, just put it down. This is real life. That's not who you are. Okay? We are more than any problem or any number or any letter or any criteria that somebody applied to us. We are more than that. All right? So, how many people here are positively influenced by the academic grading that they got? How many people here feel negatively affected by the grading that they got? So there are certain comorbidities that don't equate well to academia, all right? And some of the cleverest people known to man have had these comorbidities. If you grew up with depression, anxiety, social anxiety, ADD, ADHD, some degree of Asperger's or autism, and you can be very, very high functioning, all right? Chances are, in some way, they negatively impacted your academic experience. Here's the problem. When that happened, all right, you were at a very vulnerable developmental stage in your life growth, in your brain, in your body, in your social needs. All right, and some of these comorbidities also are well known for being extreme challenges to unsuspecting parents who didn't understand and tried to punish it out of you or chide it out of you or criticize it out of you. Or so if there's any part of that that was true for you, give yourself a break. All right, make a note of it, and let's go back and reparent ourselves. We'll do a podcast or two on how to reparent ourselves, because the only person who can absolutely parent each and every one of us ideally is ourself. And every single one of us, no matter how good our parents were or not so great, all right? No matter the stories we have to tell, we all need to reparent ourselves in some way. All right? So, were you bullied in school? Anybody here bullied in school? Okay? Anybody here bullied for things that they absolutely didn't have the awareness or the ability to change or alter? Okay. Anybody here who was limited? They had to engage in behaviors that might not have been their first choice, but in order to belong to the group, they had to go along with things that really weren't part of who they were and that they now regret. Maybe you were part of a group. Maybe you were one of the silent ones, but you were part of the group that bullied or looked down or ostracized other people. Whatever it is, own the truth. All right? And stop punishing yourself for it now. All right? Because those experiences have a lasting effect. They have an enduring effect. And you need to identify them. If you went along with a group that wasn't kind to other people or had an extremely elitist attitude to their rights and entitlements at the expense of other people, mocking other people or looking down on other people, or you were the person who was receiving the noxious message, all right, it affects you negatively both ways. And when you're not comfortable with yourself, when you're not happy with yourself, proud of yourself, procrastination can be a strategy for covering up the areas where we feel we failed ourselves, we failed others, or maybe we were an imposter. All right? Procrastination can be a strategy to help us cover those up. Because if we were off track, defending ourselves or overvaluing ourselves, we weren't meeting our true potential. And that's the same thing that's happening with procrastination. You're undermining by buying on for a thinking pattern, a behavioral pattern that undermines you. All right? If you believe that you really couldn't have done better on this project you procrastinated on, all right? If you really believe you couldn't have you done that so many times that you now believe that's how the world will treat you? That's just what you should expect out of life. All right? And has that happened so many times? Have you made that happen so many times that you've come to believe that that's what you deserve? That's all you're capable of. That's the way the world will treat you. That's your part of what the universe will send, and that somehow you must deserve it because it happens all the time. When really, we're doing it to ourselves when we procrastinate. We are doing it to ourselves. All right? And are we doing it to ourselves because we will not accept that our definition for good enough is everybody else's definition for perfect? Is the committee still talking, bad-mouthing us and criticizing us and telling us it's not good enough? All right? It's not the way it should be. If I hear the word should one more time, I swear we're going to take it and we're going to light a match to it. All right? When you catch yourself or somebody else saying should, whoa, you want you want to back out of that situation faster than grease lightning. There is no should. All right? There's no should. There's can, there's will, there's wish. Because should is always about the ideal, the perfect. And when you buy on for that in any way, shape, or form, when you don't work diligently to break that habit, no matter what other word you use instead of perfect or should, okay, you are setting yourself up. You are setting yourself up for the escape hatch called procrastination. Those two are like, they are a perfect match. One leads to the other. All right? What if you said to yourself, you know what? I'm going to work hard at this. I'm going to butt my head. I am going to make mistakes, but I'm going to take responsibility for listening to my mind and body and to all the messages it sends me, because it is trying to heal me. My mind, my body, my spirit, they are all working to heal me, and I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to work hard by listening to myself. And guess what? At the same time, I am going to risk falling flat on my face and making mistakes. It's a risk. But if you don't risk, the only people, okay, who ever were safe were the people who didn't do anything. Every time you tried to do something, especially when you're trying to do it better than the last time, all right, are the people who don't try anything. If you can't make a mistake if you're not doing anything. And here's the other thing. To be perfect, it's safer to procrastinate. Remember that. It's always going to be a comfortable little hidey hole. And we can give ourselves all kinds of stick-handling logic for getting there and staying there. It's better to work hard. It's better to risk failure. At least you know you're doing something. And it's better to risk being judged. All right? Because there are so few times in your life when it matters what the other guy thinks, what their opinion is. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. And I say informed opinions are worth more. And if you have an informed opinion that by doing this and this and this, that's the best you can do right now, and you do that, you are light years ahead of the person who is trying to do perfect. Because chances are they are not going to bring that one in for a landing very often. You've got to take the chance of making a mistake. You've got to take the chance of working hard and it not being exactly as you wished it would be. And if you do get yourself into that situation where you're afraid to take a risk, you're afraid to work any harder, you're afraid to kind of plan it a little bit at a time to meet the deadline, all right, success can feel really, really risky, all right? Why? Because when you're trying your hardest and you stand back and go, that didn't work out that well. I got something done. It didn't work out that well. I would have wanted this rather than that. All right? At least when you can come to terms with, I think I need to get better at. Making pie crust is a really good idea, a really good example, okay? Now, I'm good at a lot of things. but I have never had anything worked out from the joy of cooking. And I told you in one podcast, and it is the truth. It is not just me being funny. Somewhere in a landfill, there are 6 pieces of pie crust that are shaped in a Z. All right, because I swear I did everything the book said. All right. Now the only saving grace for me is the Japanese pears that were part of the tort, they got picked out and eaten. So something worked. All right. So if I was looking at that situation, and literally I did, I was sitting on the couch looking at the dining room table, and every plate had a pie crust like this. And I thought, okay, so it wasn't just one person who didn't like the pie crust. There's a problem with the pie crust. All right. So I could feel terrible. All right. Actually, it kind of made me bite the inside of my mouth not to laugh out loud and then have to explain it and draw everybody's attention to my failure of a pie crust. The conclusion I drew from it was one of 2 things is true here. Either you are really lousy at making pie crust, all right? And that's a possibility. Can't be good at everything. Or the joy of cooking sucks. All right. And you just can't believe a thing that you read in it. Now, later on, I found that, in fact, all editions of The Joy of Cooking are not equal. They are not even based on the same book, apparently. All right. So I still don't have an answer to my pie crust. All right. But I've decided not to fuss about it. All right. I've decided that if I make pie crust, chances are it's only ever going to be good enough. All right. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to see the humor in it. Is there any way when you miss the mark, okay, as I did, is there any way that you can see the humor in it? Is there any way it can make you feel humble? All right? Because when you feel humble, as opposed to criticized and judged, having that little spark of humor in it really helps you get through. And it really helps you be brave enough to try the next challenge. All right? So the next time you look at something and you go, well, I'm not sure I want my name associated with that. Not my finest hour. Could you do yourself a favor? Could you sit and be with it and find something humorous or amusing about it? All right? Because humor is very humbling, but it's also very empowering. You can't be afraid of something that you can laugh at. All right? You can't be afraid of something that you can laugh at. So give yourself a break. All right? Because to do otherwise, you may be setting yourself up for success is dangerous. Why? Because if I succeed this time, more and more will be expected every single time. Every single time I do something, if I'm good at it, people will expect it to be at least that good or better. Really, let them pull off the miracles. All right, get out of the miracle market. Good enough. Finished on time. All right? Because that way you won't ever have to fear that at some point you won't be able to pull it off. So sooner or later, failure is inevitable. Do you see the trap? That demand for success, high level success, the should it be, the way it should be. Do you see where that leads? That is like the vortex of the water going down the drain and you with it. That's what it feels like. All right? Okay. Another thing I want to kind of raise to your attention is it can feel risky as well if ahead of time you lay out your ideas, all right, and then you meet the deadlines. Why? Because some people, as a protective measure, and do you do this, they keep the ideas that they, first of all, they'd like to do it alone, all right, because they consider it easier. However, they don't like to lay out and be part of a team in that cooperative spirit, because if they lay their ideas out, then others might not agree. Other people will change them. They will judge them. They will approve or not approve of them. They will want to change them. They will compete for, you ever been in a team where one guy always has to have it his way? Anybody ever been in a team that way? Yeah. So depending on what your experience has been, all right, when you have to do it alone because you haven't developed assertiveness skills, all right, to have an opinion, to defend that opinion, to substantiate it, to compromise, to develop maybe an even better combined opinion and method, if you haven't been successful at that, procrastination and taking on the whole load yourself can feel like your only option. All right? So, any of those thoughts make sense to people? Do you see yourself in any of it? All right? Particularly in the I have to do it alone. It's just easier. It may not be a one-person job. All right? All right. And you're supposed to have some juice in the tank at the end of it for joy, fun, and play, learning, growing, developing human being. And by the way, 15 minutes a day minimum on a pile that is really bugging you. Okay, so let's have a look at the chat. I'm going to open it up here now. Where are we? No, Lynn, level 3 for the hoarding support group doesn't mean level 3 on the hoarding scale. Level 1 is I want to start dealing with my hoarding behaviors, my hoarding attitudes, my hoarding beliefs. All right, I want to start dealing with that. And I want to understand my own combination of vulnerabilities and fears, values, beliefs, attitudes. I want to kind of know what that roadmap looks like for me. That's hoarding level 1. Hoarding level 2 is I've done that part of it. Now I want to be able to apply that to real situations, but as a test to see what kind of adaptations. The understanding is only the first step. Now I need to know how to work out the adaptations and adjustments in order to work with my own set of comorbid factors or vulnerabilities or other things that are who I am as a person. All right. That's level 2. Level 3, and we don't have a level 2 going right now. We might, once 1 and 3 are operating, we might open a 2. But level 3 is, okay, I know that, and now I want to be part of a group where we might even be able, but I've got 1 nailed, okay? I've got 2 that I've done, all right? 3 is I'm ready to have a clutter buddy. All right. Either one of my choosing or maybe in the group. We can decide that. And now I'm ready to really start peel the lid back and look at when I don't pull it off, what happened. And to have Elaine coach me and to watch Elaine coach others in real time and learn from that so that I can start really starting to develop the skills and the strategies to pull myself out of procrastinating generally. Okay? Okay. So, Gary says good morning to everyone. 4 p.m. Hi, Denise. 4 p.m. in the UK. Yeah. How's the weather? Rain? Is it raining?
It's raining at the moment, but it's a first day. I haven't had to turn on any heating.
Yay! Yay! The thing about rain is you don't have to shovel it. I don't mind rain. Okay. Welcome, Denise. All right, let me have a look here. Carrie, may the 4th be with you. Funny. We need more volume. Do you still need more volume? No, okay. All right. A little more. Okay. Yes, Wendy, there is a fee, and I'll be posting that on the website, and I'm going to be putting it on an ad on Instagram and that kind of thing as well. Probably Google, but we will post it on the website. In fact, Braden's going to help me develop artwork in order to have that blend with the redo of the website he's going to do. So it's going to be like a brand, and the colors, if you're looking for them, will be the colors of the book. All right. So Hoarding Level 1 begins on the 24th of May, which is a Tuesday. Right now I'm looking at 2:30 till 4 o'clock, alternate Tuesdays. I don't want this to become overwhelming for you. This becomes part of your life, not the whole thing, not to an overwhelming degree. And Hoarding Level 3 support group starts on the 27th, which is a Friday. Alternate Fridays, 10 until 11:30. But for sure with Level 3, make sure that you haven't got anything really definitely planned before noon, all right? Because sometimes we'll be in the middle of something and we will have to extend it a bit, all right, till, not every time, but it's possible, quite possible. The fees, I'm still kind of playing with that in my head, just trying to work out what it costs me not to fill those spots with counseling clients. And the counseling clients generally go on longer than a group would go on. So I'm just trying to figure that out in my head. But the other thing too is, regardless of what it is, we can always work out a payment schedule. All right. I don't want to see anybody who isn't able to take part in something that I'm looking up here. I know, and then I should be recording it in the air. That's so difficult. We can work out a payment schedule, all right, to cover the cost of the hoarding support group, just so that nobody has to be left out just because finances aren't in great order. Okay. We'll work that out. It'll be the same fee as everybody else to be fair to other people, but how you pay it off, that can be individual. Okay. All right, where are we here? Kelly, I'm hoping that it got loud enough. I see at 11:04, and I didn't realize. I think my microphone was still muted. Carrie, I need to just start, period. I'm looking for a place to live and I need to get more done. Okay. Well, Let us help you with that, Carrie. Okay. Where are we? Yeah. Carrie says to everybody, shame on my parents finding out or friends seeing the hoard and clutter. The shame of my parents. Okay. Carrie, you could be doing a whole lot worse. You could be doing things that are a whole lot more seriously wrong, all right, than having clutter, all right? So it's something to work at. It's something to ask yourself, why? Why is this happening? Why does it keep happening? What do I need to do for myself to have what I need to get enough done on a regular basis? But don't make it about who you are. It is not who you are. And it's not what you're worth. All right? Those two things, they don't compute at all. Okay, where are we here? Lynn, I can't figure out how to thumbs up, but count me in. Okay, great. Claudia, sometimes I feel too brain fogged to declutter. In those moments, I wonder, how do I produce that jolt of energy to get started? Well, let's figure out what the brain fogging is. All right, that can be more than one thing. Doesn't seem to work in those moments. Claudia, let's put some real effort into that, because that is at least discernible what the cause of that is, all right? And the cause may be a really good indicator as to what the treatment is. Don't shoot on yourself. All right, let me have a look here. Oh, at 11:30, we were still having trouble with the volume? Were we? Oh, okay. Let me have a look. Are we going to receive? Yes, we are going to receive confirmation of the groups. We just managed to come up with the schedule that would allow the groups to run on an ongoing basis this past week before I headed off to Mississauga. So within the next day or so, we're going to be fine-tuning it now that we know. Yeah. All right, where are we here now? Terry, I definitely need a clutter buddy to shadow me and clean with. Sign me up, please. Okay, I'll be back in touch with you, Terry. I can't read that one, Cynthia. I'm not allowed to say that on air. And Suzanne, I'm happy to hear that. I'm being more assertive when other people should on me too. Good for you. Good for you. My goodness. I'm so happy because you are just the gentlest soul. I'm glad to hear you're speaking up. It's high time your voice counted. Cynthia, when I have brain fog, I find so Cynthia, somebody offers, when I have brain fog, I find if I start writing on my phone, like commenting on someone's chat, my brain gains some clarity. It's like the act of writing loosens something that's stuck. So when you're answering something on the phone, though, commenting on somebody else's comments, could I ask you to put the effort into yourself? Okay, make it about what you want to say to yourself, not so much commenting on the other person, just because they can accept or not accept your input. And if they do, it doesn't change your life at all. But you're the one who needs, all right? Or here in the group, you could pose a question and ask other people to share their experience. And that's something that I'd like to get to. Not give advice, but share experience. All right, because many, many people have been stuck, and many, many people have found ways to get themselves going little by little. So we're going to end for today. Thank you all for being here. And within the next 2 to 3 days, check the website. Hopefully, we will have more information up about the hoarding support groups. And Braden, I didn't mean to give you a short deadline on the artwork. Anyway, we can count on Braden. You guys take care, and I'll see you next week. All right? Bye, everybody.